hypermiling. When fuel prices are low, remember that? People think it's just the domain of a few hybrid driving MPG obsessed crackpots. Then gas prices soar and everyone says, hey, can I do that? Let's take a few pages from the Hypermiler's playbook and apply them to your everyday gas engine car and save you a bunch of money. What is hypermiling? It's basically the idea of wringing every drop of fuel efficiency out of your car. In some cases, even getting MPG that exceeds what it's rated at. Wouldn't that be nice? Normally, you look at the MPG on your car, you calculate it when you fill up. It's like, all right, it's not as good as they said it would be. I want to get to or above what they said it was going to be. And we've got tips here that should do that. Tip number one is one of the oldest chestnuts in the book. Take it easy when you accelerate from a stop. Here I am at a stop sign. It's all clear. I'm going to go. I'm going to gradually drive out. Yeah, like Grandpa, I get it. But this isn't autocross. I'm driving around town doing some errands. There's no point in jumping on the accelerator hard except to burn significantly more fuel. I'm not going to get anywhere faster. That's not how the math of trip duration works out. Little spurts and jabs of acceleration don't meaningfully shorten your drive time. Now, closely related to acceleration is to what speed you accelerate. Watch your speed. Moving a car through air is moving a big block of metal through resistance. It's the number one enemy of fuel efficiency. Look at this car, it's an 88. We used to have 85 mile per hour speedometers, top end, and 55 had a big mark on it saying that's the top end on freeways. It's a big deal to keep your speed reasonable. And the final of this sort of troika is to moderate your braking. If you moderate your speed and watch your top speed, you'll need to use your brakes less and less stabbily. You don't want to get on the brakes in any way that is other than gradual and elegant if you can avoid it. That's the best way to not waste energy, momentum, gasoline. Too many of us get on that accelerator hard because we want to get going, and then cram on the brakes because there's nowhere to go. This is a formula for wasting fuel, and that hard braking is one of the best indicators that can tell you you did the other stuff before it, the accelerating and the speed attainment, wrong. And all three of the points I just rolled out come together in one concept: drive ahead. Don't just look right in front of your car, look down the road. You learned this in driver training, you just forgot it. The idea here is to figure out, what do I need to do a block or two or three from now, a quarter or a half mile from now? That will allow you to do the three things I just talked about without having it to be a big deal. Just start to use a long-range vision in your driving. You'll be amazed how easy it is to modulate your inputs and save fuel, and it becomes second nature, which is key here. If you got to work at this too hard, it's a bore. A word about coasting. Coasting's a good guy, especially on modern cars. But don't do it the old-fashioned way, putting your car in neutral. Instead, just coast. The tips we just looked at will allow you to do that more. In fact, they'll almost require you do that more. When you coast in a modern car, the vehicle is very smart. Some vehicles will disengage parts of the driveline to reduce drag. They'll actually go into a freewheel mode. Others will shut down part of the fuel injection system, so it's not peeing gas into the engine when really nothing's happening except a very low loaf. This whole idea is built into your car's smarts. You don't need to put the car in neutral, which is dangerous and frankly may burn more fuel because your powertrain and drive computers aren't really programmed to figure that out. They're programmed to save gas when you just lift off the throttle. It pains me to say this. Leave auto start stop enabled on your vehicle if it has it. I don't like it either. That constant starting and stopping, I've never gotten used to it. It's just jarring. Most car makers do it not so well. But they put it there for a reason. They spent a lot of money on R&D and installing it because it does save significant amounts of fuel. Idling is one of the big wastes, especially in a lot of stop and go driving. Go ahead and use it. Now, what about air conditioning use? There's a lot of religion around this one. Some people say always have it on and windows up. Others say always have it off and windows down. The Department of Energy does admit that air conditioning is the biggest single drop in automotive fuel efficiency when cars are driven in hot weather. That should be pretty obvious. What do you do though? Here's a rough rule of thumb that I feel pretty good about. Below 45 miles an hour, like right now, window down, AC off, if the weather allows it. If it's beastly outside, there's nothing to discuss, right? Above 45 miles per hour, little different rule. Start cranking the window up. Now, turn on the AC. And the reason is because having the windows up is going to really reduce aerodynamic drag at highway speeds, which is something that can rob you of fuel efficiency. So use 45 as kind of your break point. But again, it depends on the weather. Here's one you may not have thought of. Park out, way out. Don't waste all that gas nickel and diming and tucking and pointing going into the main parking lot thinking, oh, I'm going to get just the perfect space. You waste a lot of fuel in a very fuel inefficient mode of your engine doing that. Park out here, avoid a lifetime of door dings, and get a little extra walking in. Okay, last couple tips on how we're going to modify you before we modify your car. This one is group your trips. Try to go do more than one thing at a time when you take the car out and go on a trip somewhere, around town, running errands, what have you, going to work. Try to make it so the farthest distant thing comes first to get the car fully warmed up, and then work your way back home with the interior stops. This is generally considered to be a better way to use fuel because this way you get your car up to full operating temperature, which is not just better for its use of fuel, but also for the longevity of the engine. It's a small thing, but if you're asking, that's my advice. Okay, I've made enough tweaks to you and your behaviors. Now let's tweak your car. Right off the bat, don't buy premium unless your car says buy premium. I can't tell you how many people still put premium in a car that wants mid-grade or typically regular and are just wasting their money. Modern cars don't look at premium and say, oh good, I'm going to re-engineer myself to utilize this gas. It doesn't work that way. If your car wants regular, that's all you need, period. And that's going to be a huge savings right there. Use the correct motor oil. This one's relatively arcane, but if you've got an older vehicle, like this one, you may be thinking, oh, I'll put a heavier motor oil in there. It's high mileage. I want to protect it better. There's some sense to that, but in modern cars, unlike this, they're engineered so tightly, they're meant to use a certain lightweight oil to get the lubrication where it should be and to reduce internal friction from an excessively viscous oil. If you put in a much heavier oil and say, oh, I'm protecting it better, you may not get oil around the channels and passages as well as you think, and you're almost certainly adding internal friction that reduces your MPG. Just do what the manufacturer says. It's almost always the right way to go. Now the number one tip you're going to ignore because you always have. Keep your tires properly inflated. What's the big deal? Tires naturally lose air. They don't gain pressure. And by doing that, they become kind of these resistance marshmallows. It's kind of like walking through a sandy beach all the time for your car. That just takes more energy, right? If you keep these properly inflated, you will save gasoline. I know what you're thinking. You're going to have one of these little POS pencil gauges and you go to the gas station, hunker down in the grease, and then the hose doesn't work and the guy in the mini mart's all surly about turning it on unless you buy a Slim Jim and 3 Gatorades. Forget all that. Buy one of the nice in-car compressors that are made these days. Keep that in the trunk, small and light. Or if you have a house with a garage, set up a compressor that's got a nice long hose that reaches all corners of your car from one place. I like to use an inflator chuck that has the gauge built in. That way I'm doing one thing, inflating and checking all at one time. But the bottom line is, know your tire pressure, check it with whatever gauge or apparatus you like. It's easy to find out what the number should be. It's going to be on a label somewhere in your car, either on the gasoline door or inside the door jamb. Maybe it's inside the glove box, depending on the era of your vehicle. Do it. And keep your tires aligned. Alignment should not be optional when your car is in for a related service. When cars are set up with alignment, they toe the front tires in a little bit. That's because at driving speeds, the friction of the tires pulls the wheels kind of back toward the rear of the car, and that causes them to then straighten out for the lowest friction and the best turning dynamics. If you don't have your tires set up right, they never get back to this nice straight line. They stay towed in a little, or worse, they get towed out. Either way, you're scrubbing your tires down the road, and that erodes fuel economy as well. Avoid the temptation to go upsize on tires. I'm not saying use skinny tires, just use the basic size. that was spec'd for your car. That's probably the one that was also part of its MPG rating. You can always get bigger tires and wheels. Almost everyone does. But they tend to have greater rolling resistance, especially when they've got a bigger patch on the ground, nice and wide and low profile. Often those packages can be heavier because there's more metal wheel and less rubber tire. That can be the way it works out. So just stick with stock tires and wheels. I think you'll be happier if you're seeking MPG more than anything else. Don't warm up your car too much. This will drive a lot of old-timers and traditionalists nuts. But the truth is, I haven't seen an owner's manual in ages that says warm up your car for 2 minutes. Get it to full temperature before you go into drive. They just don't recommend that. And trust me, your car maker does not want your car to crap out. It doesn't make them look real good. Instead, here's a rule of thumb I use. I get in the car and I start the car first. Then I put on my belt, turn on the audio I want, plug in my phone, adjust my mirror because the sunshade probably knocked it out of the right direction. And then I get off and start driving. What is that, 10 seconds? That's about all the warm up your modern car may need to get oil everywhere nicely. Then I drive it gently until the needle's off the peg. And then I keep driving it gently because I don't want to waste fuel. If you're going off to autocross or going on a club drive, that's different. But for everyday driving, what's the point? And finally, unload all that junk in your car. Remember, it used to be we put cars in garages, then the cars moved out and now the garage is full of junk. Now the car is out and it's full of junk. We just can't stop spreading our stuff. But if you've got a lot of stuff in your car, you might have a passenger's worth of weight. It's spread around, looks like nothing, but it's actually something. And that will alter your MPG. Clean it up. I know, there's a lot to remember here, a lot of new muscle memory. It's kind of like golf. You got about 20 things to remember as the club's coming down. But like with golf, once you make it all muscle memory, it's easy and you get a beautiful shot. Hopefully that shot takes you past the gas station.